What's up? How you doing? How's life? How's everything? My name's Damon, and I haven't live streamed in like a long time. This is the first time I'm doing any sort of live stuff with the app Streamlabs, by the way, so this is very experimental right now, but it's okay. Today, I want to talk about something very special to my heart, and that is embracing the next generation. Hopefully, this all works out. I don't always like editing, and so sometimes live streaming is easier. I also just like the format of just sitting here and talking, and hopefully as this continues, we could start getting people in the chat, because my channel is too small to even have anyone present while it's actually live. But you could catch the replay, so that's awesome too. And before we get going on the actual topic, I just want to also say that I'm on kind of like this creative kick right now, very motivated to do a lot. And so the podcast is back. Videos, since you're watching this right now, are back. The podcast, if you don't know, I got one called Everyone is Talking About God. You could click on the link in the description. And we stopped for quite a few months putting out episodes. And the last month or so, we've been putting them out. A lot of old interviews that were recorded before we took a break, we've been putting out. And they've been awesome. We just put out the last episode in a series of interviews, a 4-part series called God After Sovereignty. The 4th part went up today, where we talked about like the practical side of talking about a God without the concept of sovereignty. Super duper interesting to me. Hopefully interesting to others as well. And one of the awesome things about the podcast coming up is that I feel a lot more comfortable with it now. It's like, I'm just gonna make stuff that I find interesting, you know? Sometimes you try so hard to make your creation, your art, your craft, like other people who you see are doing good at it and that you really like. And it gets exhausting because it's not you. Or you feel like it has to be a certain level of interesting or entertaining or funny or intellectual, profound, whatever. But it's like it starts to become this sort of forced nature that isn't really organic. And so, yeah, the podcast, super fun, super great. Go check that out. Now, the topic at hand, the next generation. First off, let's start off by talking about a fellow named Lil Nas X. Now, it's just barely right now, as we're recording this, April 15th, 2019, barely starting to somewhat become old news, but plenty of people are still talking about it, and I'm definitely still talking about it with my friends. Lil Nas X, if you don't know, I'll give you the quick summary of what's going down. This Atlanta rapper, very young guy. He was putting out on his YouTube and SoundCloud these typical trap rap songs, and he wasn't really getting that much traction. Apparently he was living at his sister's house, had just quit his job, didn't want to go back to work, felt like he needed to make something happen, and he decided to, over this beat that he received from this guy, make a country trap song, and he called it Old Town Road. Yes. Should we play some of it? Let me see here. Yeah, let's try to play some of it real quick, if I can. I don't think it'll get copyright claimed and shut the whole live stream down. No, let's not do that. Go look it up. You already probably know this song. The reason I feel like you probably already know this song is because it beat the world record for most streams in a week. And the previous world record holder was Drake with his song God's Plan. And so he put out, actually, hold up. That's actually in reference to the remix. I'm getting way ahead of myself. So he put out the song in December, and it was like getting a little bit of traction. Then it was starting to get some traction in meme Twitter because it's kind of a funny song. It sounds like he's joking, really, like he's just kind of parodying country. And then it ended up blowing up through TikTok. And then everyone started talking about it, and it started to get higher and higher and higher on the Billboard charts for country. And then they're like, this ain't country. It doesn't have enough elements that classify it as country. Took it off. Then that is what really made everyone talk about it. All kinds of news articles and news videos, everyone talking about it. And then Billy Ray Cyrus was like, all right, bet. Hopped on the remix. And then that song right there is what beat that world record. And it's such an awesome story. First off, everyone loves the part about, oh, it got taken off the country charts and we're going to show them this is country. And I very much feel like that's a big reason why so many people listen to it. It was kind of like a punch back to these very strict borders of the country charts. And some people even felt like, is this racist? Like, did they take him off because he's a young black kid? Others were like, no, of course not. It's because there's trap drums on it. Others were like, well, a lot of country these days, including songs that are also on the Billboard charts, have a little bit of trap drums in there. Have a little bit of hip-hop influence. And so I'm really not sure why exactly they took it off, but by taking it off, they made it huge. And so it like warms my heart, by the way, to see like all these young urban kids from anywhere like dancing and singing along to this song. Kids who obviously don't listen or care about country, because who's country speaking to? Not necessarily the next generation. So much of country feels like it's old people's music, I think, among young people. And suddenly, I think we're getting a glimpse into perhaps a new wave of country. Not to say this is what country is going to change to, but to say there's something opening up, a new avenue of this combination of genres and influences. And I think that's really exciting. Some people, I've had some friends that heard it and was like, what? This is where country is going? Really? This isn't country. And I'm thinking like, this is awesome because this is new. This is coming from the next generation. Now, when I talk about embracing the next generation, I understand there's a little bit of irony here in the fact that I'm young still. I'm 26. I'm sure everyone younger than me is thinking, well, yeah, you're part of an older generation. But everyone older than me is probably thinking, what are you talking about embracing the next generation? You are the next generation. You're just talking about embracing yourself? It's confusing a little bit. And yes, I know I'm more similar to the generation below me than the generation above me is. But there are still differences. When people talk about millennials or Gen Y and then Gen Z, I'm like very much in between there, because many people, when they talk about where Gen Z starts, what year, they usually say around 1993 to 1995. Everyone born after that is part of Gen Z. I was born 1993. So I'm like probably technically the very, very end of millennial or Generation Y or Generation Y. And because of that, I feel kind of this, like I have two, like both my feet are on two different fields. It's like I very much get a lot of people older than me, and I wouldn't say I very much get a lot of people younger than me. I would say I am very capable of getting the people a lot younger than me. I'm very capable of putting in that effort to kind of sit with these new ideas. Perhaps, like, for example, when I say new ideas, the way music has changed. A lot of people who are my exact age, born 1993, I know plenty of them that say, oh, hip-hop is so awful today. or music in general is so awful today. Meanwhile, all kinds of people younger than us was like, this music is amazing. I'm mainly talking about like trap music. There it's like, and then when we try to say, oh, the classics, when rap was good, people younger than us would be like, that music is boring. And the reason I'm not one of those people who are my age saying, oh, music's awful nowadays, hip-hop is dead, trap music, mumble rap, bleh, is because I've intentionally, purposely put in effort to try to understand it. I have spent a lot of time listening to trap music, but funny enough, I also feel like I'm more fascinated with the culture of trap music than even trap music itself, because I feel like it's very fascinating to me. Just culture, how culture changes, art, how art affects different people and how it's contextualized. I found it all very fascinating. And I've always been someone who is very interested in the future and what's coming next and something new. I, for quite a few years, was in youth ministry back when I was in the evangelical world before I left because I didn't agree with that stuff anymore. I was, what was my official title, because I didn't have my pastoral license, was I was a youth pastor, but in the community I was in, they didn't want to say pastor unless you had the actual license. And so my actual title was Director of Student Ministries. And I was in charge of the youth, junior high, high school, those ministries, and young adults. And when I first got to this position, I was already for years helping out with the youth group at this church and teaching every once in a while. And then when that youth pastor left and I was the next one, well, and then when they offered it to me, I took it very seriously. Very, very seriously. I very much saw the position as a huge honor and privilege. I get to lead these people, get to be involved in these kids' lives, get to have a front row seat to their growth, which was so awesome. And a few of them I still have a relationship with today, a couple years after I left. And when I began, I took it very seriously, and I thought a lot about how do I lead the next generation? How do I intentionally involve myself in what's going on in the next generation? One way I've seen plenty of people do it, particularly in the evangelical world, is try way too hard to be trendy. Start putting like trendy meme words in their sermon titles, like lit or what else is there? I don't know. I can't think of any right now except for lit, or start dabbing as much as they can, or start wearing ridiculous clothes like the super long t-shirts and the tight pants and the special shoes. There's this Instagram account right now called Preachers and Sneakers, and it shows all these pastors who have extremely expensive shoes, which is an odd sight to see since they're in a position where they're supposed to be helping the community. And yeah, just look at that Instagram account. That way of dressing is what I'm talking about. And I felt like that feels so fake and authentic, and it's obvious to everyone. And I felt like, okay, I started thinking about David Bowie. David Bowie from the 1960s and 70s. He had a huge pull with all of the youth. He was all about the youth, and the youth were all about him. And yet he didn't try to copy them. He didn't try to be like them. Instead, he was radically himself. He was willing to experiment. He was willing to play around with his image, with the way he dressed, with the way he looked, and just fully be comfortable in his own skin. And that's what attracted so many youth to him. And I decided to try my best to do the same thing. And so I just thought, like, what are all the weird and crazy ways I've wanted to be myself publicly that I never had the courage to do. And so I've never talked about this, by the way. So this is kind of funny, like thinking back and putting it into words. One of the things I did, I had my girlfriend at the time dye my hair gray because I always wanted to see what my hair looked like, or more of it like a bluish silver. I always wanted to do that, but I felt like, oh, that's weird. Instead, I was like, but I want to do it, so I'm doing it. I got these, what are they called? Jogger shorts, basically. Nobody was wearing those. That wasn't a choice of, this is what the kids are wearing these days. It was purely, I like how these look. They look ridiculous, and I'm sure some people won't like how I look, but I bought 2 of them and was like, I want to wear these because I want to fully be myself and experiment with my image as I decide who I am, sort of. And it was interesting because there's some youth that would roast me, would clown on me and my choices, but they still loved it because it was like, Damon is just trying things out. Damon is experimenting with his image. Damon is fully being himself and not caring what anybody else thinks. Maybe I can too. Like, that's way better route than, how are the kids dressing these days? I'm gonna dress like that. How are the kids talking these days? I'm gonna talk like that. How do they look? I'm gonna try my best to look like that. Hate that. So inauthentic. Always inauthentic. And one of the other things I did, I had found this article about some trap music artists, particularly Young Thug. Young Thug, who's also from Atlanta, and Future, who's also from Atlanta. And it was mainly about Young Thug. We got a little bit into Future, and it was talking about how different their music is today. And there's this quote at the end. I wish I could say this quote verbatim. I took this quote at the end of the article and put it on my wall in my office at that church. And that piece of paper is long gone now. And I think that article got deleted offline because I tried my hardest to find it. Found no trace of it. But toward the end of the article, this is what he said and what I put on my wall. He said, what makes Young Thug and Future unique is that they are taking familiar materials and bending them into unfamiliar shapes. And perhaps that's how you know that when it feels unfamiliar, that is the next generation's pop. It was worded a little bit more elegantly than that, but that's basically what it said. And I had that on my wall because it reminded me that as I'm experimenting, as I'm innovating, I was very much experimenting, innovating with the way I preached and taught as well. Everything was very much experimenting. And I thought about that a lot, where it was like, it's not about trying my hardest to look a certain way or try to be a certain way, but it was about always being willing to experiment and welcome in the new. And fully be yourself. And so I think about that still a lot, this idea of using familiar materials and bending them into unfamiliar shapes. And back to Lil Nas X, taking familiar materials, trap drums, country music, this way of singing, the lyrics mentioning tractors and horses and old town roads, and bending them into unfamiliar shapes. And the older generation is like, what is this crap? The younger generation, like, this is our song. And oh, wait, hold on. Something's happening. Oh. My camera might shut off soon, so it's okay. Anyway, so sorry, I got distracted. Oh yeah, so embracing the next generation. It's something that obviously needed in music and something that we experienced with Lil Nas X. I'm like, yes, let's make this happen. Let's bust this up to #1 on all the charts. And it's something that should be happening in ministry. like I was trying my hardest to do. And it's something that should be happening in spirituality as a whole, trying to realize God is young. The best qualities of young people are the qualities that God shared too. And God is ahead of us, pulling us forward into the new thing that God is doing. Our role on this earth isn't to find out all the answers and then once you find them all out, share them with everybody else. No. Our role is to continue learning, and growing. There's this old Zen saying that in the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. And the expert's mind, there are few. So it's so important to constantly be in that beginner's mind and the student's mind. And that connects us also with Jesus when he says to his followers, go out into the world and make disciples of all of the nations. Disciples means students, beginners, learners. And I keep saying that over and over and learning that more and more, deeper and deeper. That life is about continuing to learn and grow, not figuring all the answers and sharing them with everybody else. And that involves being open to new ideas and what's coming from the next generation. There's this old quote from a Kanye West interview while he was being super arrogant. There was a period where he was the most arrogant. It was when Jesus had come out. And he said something like, I don't take advice from anyone over 45. I only listen to people who are under 35 because they're the people with ideas. And that's super arrogant and not good advice to take at all. But I think there is a nugget of gold in there where we realize, yes, we should be open to the new ideas. We should be open to realize that the next generation is growing up in a context that allows them to come up with things that people older than them literally can't. And so I'm so open to the new, to what's next, to what's coming, to the future of spirituality and culture and art and everything else. And I want to keep talking about that kind of stuff. So, of course, I usually also on this channel talk about Christian leftist ideas. Actually, let me bring that into something that's also interesting. We're seeing in polls and statistics that the younger generations are becoming more and more favorable of the word socialism and less favorable with the word capitalism. And of course, the right-wing critique is that that's because they don't know what socialism actually is. And yes, that is part of it. Well, they would usually say they don't know what socialism is. They don't understand. They don't know the history of the USSR and Maoist China, and they don't really know. I wouldn't exactly say that. I would say they don't know what it is, mainly because of the right-wing scare tactics of when people like Obama was like, I want to give free healthcare, and then them saying, that's socialism. And then young people saying, what? That's socialism? I like socialism, when that's not even socialism. That's like social democracy or social welfare capitalism, not actual socialism. And so I think part of the reason so many people are uneducated by socialism, about what socialism is because of the right-wing scare tactics, calling a bunch of stuff that isn't socialism. But anyway, at the same time, I think a lot of young people who are in favor of the word and the ideas of socialism and not as much in favor of capitalism, I know a lot of them do know what they're talking about when they say that. And that's another thing that we have to open ourselves up to. I mean, when you think about the way Marx talks about history, how it's like we have these systems, these economic systems, these ways of running the world, and you have like this primitivism and some other one, I don't remember, and feudalism, and then capitalism, and then socialism. It's like as the world goes on, things have to change in order to meet the context of the new time period and the new people in them. And feudalism, so many people were like, feudalism is the best, man. You can't change to capitalism. You can't shift into that. Capitalism will never work. People have tried capitalism over and over, and no one has ever been able to get it going. It doesn't work. Feudalism forever. And then it worked. And I think the same thing's going to happen. It's just how history works. It's bound to happen. Everyone now saying, oh, socialism, that's not going to work. That'll never happen. People have tried it over and over. It never happens. Capitalism forever. And then one day, it'll change. Be open. Be open to new ideas. Be open to how people see things in their own particular context and in ways that you could never because you're not in that context. Be willing to have conversations. Be willing to learn. Be willing to grow. That is what it's all about. And it makes me excited to be on this planet. It makes me excited to be alive. It makes me excited to be in a relationship with so many people who are also interested in similar conversations and ideas. And yeah, so that's basically all I wanted to talk about today. Embracing the next generation, being open to the new, being open to what other people have to say who are from other contexts. Go check out Lil Nas X. Hopefully he stays a cool guy and he doesn't become, because he just barely became famous. He could be a total psycho bad person. I don't know yet. He could be. But right now he's cool. So go check him out. And I want to keep doing these live streams. If you watch this video, let me know what you thought. Let me know if you have any ideas of what else you would like me to talk about, and I'll be back. I'll be back doing these live streams. I want to keep chatting. I'll, of course, keep making videos where I edit them and all that, and of course, keep putting out podcasts. So, like I said, I'm on this creative kick, motivated to keep creating, and plenty of stuff for you to engage with. So engage with me, folks, and I'll see you in the next one. All right? Sound good? See you later. Cool.